this in this video, we're addressing, the breaking spells series. And tonight in this gathering, we are leaning into a very specific spell that is wreaking havoc on so many people, particularly medicine people, that's preventing them from really healing the wounds inside of them, healing their past. It's preventing them from really stepping into these depths and medicine that we each carry inside of us. And it's wreaking havoc on our physical being, our spiritual being, and our sense of being alive. And what this spell is the spell that we are always supposed to be in a state of ascension, that we're always supposed to be blooming and in affluence, and that we are not to look to our past and not to look to our grief, but to just deflect and focus on what's good in life. And so this is a very potent spell, which we call sattva syndrome. Sattva is a state of being in balance. And the syndrome is about we're always supposed to be there. But imagine that for a moment, having permission to let all the grieving parts of you be holy, be celebrated, be honored. Imagine if all the grieving parts of you were honored. Imagine letting go of all the pressure to be something other than what you are right now, right here. Imagine honoring and resting in the accumulation of the love that has brought you here to this moment. Right? Imagine how good that would feel. What would that do for you? What would that do for you? Feel into this poem by Mary Oliver called Wild Geese. It's a beautiful poem that brings us into the heart of this. And she says, you do not have to be good. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles to the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles to the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Mary Oliver. Feel into those words for a moment. What called to you? Where'd you find yourself in them? How many times have you been told a smile? Think positive. Put your best face on. How much have you been told you have to repent? That you're in a kind of debt that has an obligation to be repaid? Or have you ever felt that? Right? From that kind of psychology, you are born into the world already with a deficit. You come in with already something owed. And what this kind of talk is telling us is that it's not okay to share the authenticity of what we are feeling, that anything other than rainbows and the ever expanding forward is bad. There's something wrong with us if we're not cheerful and feeling the joy of life. But because we have loved, we have experienced loss. Because we have dreamed, right? You have failed expectations. Because you have dared to grow into your vision of life, you've known struggle and uncertainty and that silent yet adamant courage that you hold inside you to dare and move through it all. Isn't that right? Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you about mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. And what we're speaking into here is a kind of permission to rest in the authenticity of yourself and let all the unholy parts of yourself be holy and beautiful again. This is what we call soul retrieval. Every time we denied our grief, denied our struggle, denied the beauty and having to navigate a path that's unknown and full of uncertainty, we sever off a piece of ourselves and we put it aside and then don on a new mask, a new skin in order to hide the torment and struggle inside. And so we all walk around pretending. But imagine if you could allow all these things that we've deemed as unholy and ugly, allow them to be holy and beautiful again, that we come back into that layer of relatedness. Imagine that. What would that look like to you? And the spell we're breaking here is the conditioned belief we're supposed to already have life figured out and ever be in this picture of success and happiness. But no human comes into the world fully formed. Indigenous societies, and they are structured around being humble students to the rest of creation. They share we are the younger relatives of the trees and the mountains, the animals, the rest of life, for they were here before us. So we bow our heads in respect and we learn from them. And they advocate being humble students of our own life path, for it is the way Spirit is uniquely dreaming each of us into the world. So we can be students of the path. You can be student of the path as you walk it. And the Tlingit people, they refer to the Moon Palace as that place where people try to live up above, up above it all. They look down on the happenings of the world, but they're not touched by them. They are removed from them. The elders share our journey is to return back down to the earth. And when we descend back to the earth, to keep our eyes open. It is this journey back down, which is back down into relatedness, where we recognize we're part of the world again. We become broken enough to be part of the world again. We become broken enough to become fully human. The old Crone says, become broken into wholeness. The other spell we're breaking here is the goal of life is to ascend. It's all about ascension, to rise above it all. What a toxic spell that has been placed on us. But instead of practicing detachment, what if we practice radical attachment? That we're willing to love something fully, knowing that we will experience loss. That we enthusiastically pour all our love into a dream, knowing we may not succeed. Now that's radical attachment, right? That's true detachment. As Martine Parchel shares, if you're going to fail, fare miserably. And in failing miserably, you fail beautifully. We'll put everything into it. Right? Imagine if our times of struggle or failure weren't reflections of inadequacy, but rather that we yet dared to dream, that we yet had a strong heart to dare to expand, to grow, to dream something new. We went in with full-heartedness, an open heart, strong heart. We stepped into the unknown with that heart. Imagine if we gauged our failures and our struggles in that way, because no human will escape experiencing loss or struggle or uncertainty. And you can see to acknowledge this is to give yourself a very profound gift. And when we honor these in ourselves, we can honor that in others. And in this, we can relate with a deeper, courageous inner process that each person must navigate each day. Imagine that level of compassion and kindness and grace that we both experience as well as we would gift to others. It's powerful, especially in today's world. We're so conditioned. We're so conditioned to see inadequacy, to see weakness instead of strength. So imagine instead of looking for the weaknesses, the blemishes and inadequacies in the world, in others, in yourself, that you instead looked for the courage, the humility, and the process of growth that people are navigating every single day. That we looked and honored your own courage, beauty, and process of growing into yourself. Imagine that. What would that feel like to be seen and honored in your own process? It's powerful. It's powerful. When we grow downward, we're reclaiming our authenticity. When we listen into our storied past from the more indigenous lens, the stories we used to reinforce our blemishes become the medicine that reinforces our gifts. They become the stories that reinforce our strength and our courage. So to break the spell of the moon palace, we hence want to come into the authenticity of ourselves, to honor the beauty of our own process of ever growing and becoming, because once we can honor ourselves, we can honor it in others. Listening to the wisdom of the old crone, the wise crone, the medicine crone. This is what she says. It's the poem. Old crone, wild crone, she says, grow downward. Drink from the soil. Drink from the soil. Grow from the dark places that hold the hidden inheritance within. Become broken enough that you are part of the world again, that you become fully human. To retrieve our hearts from the locked jeweled box we hid on the ivory altar, amongst all the other untouchable holy things, requires requires a beauty held by the light that seeps through the cracks of our own weathered heart. The deeper your roots, the higher you may ascend, and you only ascend if your roots grow deep. Then you become whole. You become embodied, become connected. Old crone, wild crone, she says, grow downward. Be broken into wholeness. Still into those words. We only have our shadows because we don't have the cultural intelligence to greet our wounds and struggles as they're occurring in a good way, right? We don't have the cultural frame and traditions to ferry us through our shadows, through these thresholds of entering into a new stage of life. In fact, we're in a cultural frame that shames us for our wounds and struggles. We're conditioned to suppress them and push through, pull up your bootstraps, march on. And so that's how we get our shadows. So now we're in a kind of deficit. Our debts of honoring how we've been touched, moved, and initiated into life are now being called. They're ready to have a voice, and you've now become ripe enough to receive them and listen from a different kind of ear that will allow their true medicine and stories come up and take up residency within you and give you a power that you only gain by knowing the depths of self. And that's what real shadow work is, an act of honoring the rich textual tapestry of life that you have lived and has afforded you the unique gifts and powers that you hold to serve the dreaming of life ongoing. So to break the spell is to grow downward, to honor your depths, to honor the wounds and receive the gifts, the stories, the medicine they have to offer. And if you would like assistance with this, because the greatest challenge in any of this work is that because we're always looking out our own eyes, we don't see our own conditioning that blinds us from what is right here available for us. But to be able to have someone help you see through a mythic and ancestral lens, suddenly everything opens up and you gain entrance into what we call the innermost huts of self. And from there you bloom. And if you would like that, please reach out. You can go to awakenthesage.com or treeoftotems.com and reach out. We're here to be of service. All right. Go downwards.